guys, welcome to Clockwork down to Noodles. We're back with another breakdown for Requiem of the Rose King, episode 16. Things are getting a bit more spicy in court. There's a lot of things changing around, so this breakdown is going to focus on what's going on, why is it happening, and what is the benefit at the end. Before we get going, make sure you guys are subscribed. We are aiming to hit 1k by the end of the season, so we can start doing things like streaming. We can start doing really cool things. I have these grand ideas of us maybe going to Twitch and doing a talking session, things like that. To do things like that, I need to have more people around to make it worthwhile, to make sure that we can have a fun conversation going on. I want to basically discuss Friday night. We're all going to get together and discuss, let's say, Bubble, the newest movie that came out by Wit Studio on Netflix. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. It's a very good movie. If you're a fan of VV Fluorite Eye Song, you can definitely see the VV influences. Definitely continued using those same animators and that same style, and it has done the marvels. Make sure you check that movie out. Let's get going. This is episode 16. Things are starting to change. Jane the Witch was a big loose cannon for me, and I still can't quite figure her out. Jane the Witch has been stirring some things up behind everybody's backs. She's been also talking to Hastings this week. Hastings is a key figure because Hastings ends up going over to, I want to say, dark side, but both sides are bad. If you were to ask me if I support Richard in this, not particularly, but also I understand that Richard's a bit of a lesser of two evils. This week we do see Jane stirring some bits and pieces up. Catesby, I have been saying all the way through, has really only been Richard's only true friend. There were a few moments where I was like, oh, is Catesby finally turning his back? Catesby just finally deciding to abandon Richard. But he doesn't. He doesn't do it, despite the fact that at times I think his brain really just talks to him and he starts battling himself. The little moment at the front is when Richard says, if I get lost in the woods, can you come and find me? And Richard right now is completely lost in the woods. I don't really think there's very much that Catesby can do aside really just sticking with them and just hoping for the best. But it's now a game. It's a game about buying loyalty. How many people can you bribe? How many people can be on your side? Richard needs as much support as possible if we're going to start gaining influence. If Richard does do a takeover, which is going to happen, it needs to be done in the most favourable manner. It needs to be done in a very clever way. Buckingham does threaten to remove Catesby if Catesby proves an issue. Really worried at a few points that Buckingham would do it, because there's a few moments where if things had gone differently, Catesby would have been framed, would have been seen as getting in Richard's way. I do still think if Catesby dies, it's going to be the end of all hope. I think Catesby is the last remaining shred that is able to perhaps talk sense into Richard, or at least be the only friend that Richard can fully rely on. Elizabeth is now making her play. Elizabeth is making a play for Hastings to get somebody other than Richard as a protector. It doesn't have to be Hastings. It just needs to be somebody to split the court, start weakening Richard's power, because right now, Richard is the only person standing in Elizabeth's way, so the target is Richard. We've also seen that Jane is also targeting Hastings. Still don't trust Jane. Jane could be on anybody's side. Hastings seemingly getting beheaded. I don't know if he does. We only hear him pulling a sword, threatening to go for him. Jane is playing for someone, but I'm not quite sure who. And I think Jane might be one of those characters who plays for whoever's winning. Catesby does seem to protect Hastings. Now, Hastings is the man, the family that Catesby went to protect once Richard had grown up. So we are told that Catesby was a retainer when Richard was growing up and when young. But then Catesby ended up moving and gaining a new lord. And that lord is Hastings. So if you're wondering why, Catesby kind of defends Hastings, and he just states, well, he's just here, it's okay, he hasn't done anything, I'll vouch for him. Initially, he is making a play for his lord, and he's obviously excusing him, but he also isn't quite aware that there's been that plea from Elizabeth just yet. And this is where I mean, it could have been horrifically bad if Buckingham had suddenly found out earlier and seen Catesby protecting Hastings and then finding out that this was going on. It looks, even though it's not the case, that Catesby is trying to hide the fact that Hastings is going behind everyone's back and trying to get rid of Richard. Richard this week using whatever it takes to gain that support. Anything goes right now. You just need to make sure that you've got more of the number on your side. The court is split. It is anybody's gain. Catesby this week is battling with that inner demon, trying to work out what is the right path, what to do. Both Hastings and Richard are previous masters. They're people that he feels loyal to, and both of them initially, he hasn't got a reason to betray either. At the end of the day, it comes down to the young childhood empathy with Richard is what initially does it. We saw, I think last week, Catesby also gets bullied, treated differently for how he looked. There's that empathy and that childhood that they've got that's linking them together. I guess at the end of the day, it comes down to how long you've known somebody. Hopefully it's going to stay that way, because I do see the Catesby thing as a wobble. I do believe in the moment Catesby could, when loyalty calls for it and a scenario actually occurs. I still don't think he could kill Hastings, but we'll have to find out if he's killed Hastings or not. He could do what he believes is the right thing and betray Richard for his own best or whatever he presumes is best. You could be loyal to someone, see them doing the wrong thing and then turn them in because it's for their own good. For now, it seems to be on Richard's side. But we'll have to see what happens in the heat of the moment to see what actually happens, because we don't know if Hastings is dead yet. I still think it's not the most easiest thing to do to even dispose of a former friend or a former lord. The Queen's Secret Service, why is it happening? In the eyes of God, we are trying to get a new protector, crowning a new protector, even though the king's not really involved. She's trying to get somebody else other than Richard as protector of the king. She needs to get rid of the power that those two have, so she's either giving it to Hastings or she wants to crown herself. The past is the worst. She needs to have a guy instead. Initially, any kind of movement going up against the Queen would have been seen as treason, so they had to be very careful about how they actually acted. But what the Queen doesn't seem to remember is that there technically is a monarch on the throne, and we're all forgetting that one of the boys is on the throne right now. There's a monarch. Even if that monarch is young, that monarch is still male. That monarch has more power than the Queen does. Richard has been said to have had a few words with the king, and the protector has manipulated the prince to cancel the church service, which is something I guess she wasn't quite foreseeing, that her own son would go up against her. The Queen essentially has no power over her son. Perhaps even a rebellious stage that we saw last time as well, that once the king's got hold of the power, and I mean the king is very young, it's gonna be like, oh, this is fun, I get to tell everybody around me what to do. That's essentially what it is. We have a complete split court. The court is a complete mess right now. A lot of people against one another. There's two sides going on. We do see Howard calling out Hastings, because Howard was the one who had been bought off with a bit more of a physical bribe by Richard. But things are starting to get heated in court. Hastings is backing the Queen. The king himself just completely bored by the idea of church and is uninterested in things because they're adult things, they're boring. King doesn't really want to hear any of it. So King's not really getting on any side, but it initially backs up Richard. It's what we want to actually happen. So without understanding the king's actions, back Richard. So the biggest trump card. It's a bit weird that Hastings does nothing at this point, which is quite sad. We could argue that he was pretty outnumbered, so he couldn't have done anything, but it does derail quite badly. This does go horrifically wrong. The Queen Mother, she's not dead yet. Honestly, I thought this woman would be dead by now. She still wants Richard dead, and we're still gunning for Richard. Richard must die. The big secret is now out. So the Queen now has more ammunition to her gain, and now suddenly everybody in the entire, at least the town, knows that Richard is some kind of demon. I don't know if the body thing has been mentioned, but it's already been rumoured around with drunkards and bards all saying secrets and stuff. Catesby does seemingly do nothing, and the secret does get out, and this is bad. This is really, really bad. So initially I was like, well, that's not exactly very loyal of you, but then at the same time it's like, well, couldn't have really done a great deal because he was on his own, but he does seem to allow Hastings to get away with a fair bit, and there's many times when he could have confronted Hastings and done something about it, but the time really is now to act, because now all of this information is out. Richard could theoretically be burnt at the stake. It did occasionally happen. It doesn't happen as much until we actually get to the proper witch trials. Before then, it was a bit more hit and miss. It only really was reserved for people. We do know, though, that England was a very superstitious place. Everybody is now pretty much out to get Richard and going to be hunting down this demon. The final scenes of the court meeting. Initially, it's set up as a court meeting to discuss the coronation. Whenever it seems to be something small or it's trying to discuss something, there's always something, a deeper meaning going on, and it turns into a bit of a power play. The idea really is just to separate them out. Richard has bought off the old guy, and I think I remembered this, and when I saw him in the church talking to the Queen, I was like, are you a double agent? Are you technically doing it? Because we've seen you technically be bought off by Richard and he doesn't end up vanishing. But the idea is to separate them because you can deal with them one by one. It's easier. So it all boils down to Hastings now, and Hastings telling Catesby this is it. this is against the crown. We have to stand up. Initially, Catesby doesn't do anything again. And this is the moment when you're like, it could go either way. It's why I know he's, for now, saying that he is loyal to Richard. As I gave that example earlier, if your best friend did something horrifically bad and you still like your best friend and you're loyal to them, but you know for their own sake that the best thing is to call them in, you will still do that because it's for their best. It is still a very hard choice to make for Catesby because Catesby is trying to be loyal to Richard, but at the same time hadn't got a reason to hate Hastings and can fully understand why Hastings is doing what Hastings is doing. Two masters here, two people he considers his own masters, and he's still got to make that choice. It does seem that he picks Richard, and I do want to see the rest of that sequence to see if he actually takes out Hastings, because I'm not fully convinced Hastings is dead. Maybe he pulls his sword and he goes to kill him and can't do it. Maybe that's what's actually happening. Ending on the idea that Catesby can't save Richard, but the least you can do is sit with Richard in the darkness and comfort them, even if it is till the bad end. Hopefully that is the case. We'll see next week if Hastings has departed. We're going to see what's going to happen there, and we'll see what side Catesby is actually on. But things are going to be very different. There's a lot of things now happening. Things are getting fast-paced. Things are going to start changing quite quickly now, so we need to make sure we're keeping on top of it. Hopefully I'm trying my best to simplify things. You guys understand what's going on, why people are acting the way that they are. So I hope you guys are looking after yourselves. Have had a good weekend. I will see you guys again next week. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.